I'm going to minimize you guys here and I'm going to go ahead and start talking. So yes, thank you guys all for having me. My name is Kayla Jones. Like Esmeralda said, I am the coordinator for the Ocean Wise Sightings Network. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Whale Report app, the Whale Report alert system, whale spotting, and marine mammal guidelines today. First off, I do want to just acknowledge that I'm calling in from the traditional and unceded territory of the Ucluelet First Nation, where I'm very, very lucky and grateful to live. So to start us off, who exactly is Ocean Wise? Ocean Wise is a global conservation organization, and we're on a mission to build communities that take meaningful action to protect and restore our oceans. We have 5 conservation teams that are working on a diverse array of projects. I work on the whales team, and our goal is to create safer, more plentiful waters for whales by 2030. We strive to apply the best available science to design and deliver tools which directly conserve and protect whales both in our Canadian waters and also worldwide. So the Ocean Wise Sightings Network. The goals of the Ocean Wise Sightings Network are to collect data on the spatial and temporal abundance of cetaceans in our waters, to mitigate ship strikes and vessel disturbance via the Whale Report app and the Whale Report alert system, which I'm going to get into much more detail into later, and also to educate the public about cetacean conservation and stewardship. And this program is over 20 years old, but it came about because there are 23 species of whale, dolphins, and porpoises in BC, and 12 of those are listed as at risk under Canada's Species at Risk Act, which is why it's really important for us to spread awareness about them. And by collecting these sightings reports, we can learn more about the distribution and occurrence of these species, and that helps us conduct conservation and stewardship more effectively. So Oceanwise has, like I said, been gathering whale sightings reports from volunteer observers for over 20 years, and these observers have been recruited through various means, but that includes outreach, trainings, and other educational programming. Overall, our archives go back as early as the 1930s. I think our first report is actually from 1931, but it was of a loggerhead turtle, funnily enough. Most of our sightings are in and around the BC coastline, as you can see from this map that's showing you all of the different species that have been reported to us since our first report. But we are growing more and more each day into Washington State, Alaska, and beyond. We actually got a report from Guatemala the other day. We now have a community-based science network of over 7,000 observers, and these sightings are considered a primary source of cetacean occurrence on the West Coast. So with all of this sightings data, it's of course important that we're putting it to good use. And after many discussions with professional mariners, they expressed the desire for a system that would help provide them with real-time information on whale presence to allow them to take mitigative action to reduce the risk of vessel strike. So the problem is that vessel traffic in our oceans has been increasing for decades. From 1992 to 2012, there has been a 300% increase in ship traffic. And since then, vessel traffic, activity, and size have all increased. So we can think of this in terms of coastal throughput, which generally refers to the amount of goods, services, and traffic passing through a coastal port or area over a specific time period. And the graph on the screen here is showing port throughput, which is an indicator of many things, but you can infer more coastal vessel activity as more is being loaded. So whether that's more ships, more transits, or just higher efficiency at ports, of course. And this is showing a 33% increase in throughput globally. So as the industry is increasing, it's our job as conservationists to react to this and to try to find solutions. Of course, more ships moving along the coast means more chances of negative whale-vessel interactions, which could lead to more strikes and more deaths for whales. So vessels pose a few different threats to whales, and I'm going to cover them. Vessels pose a physical risk to cetaceans, and the impact of the threat is often underestimated. So most reports are from vessels of less than 15 meters in length. Large vessels are actually less likely to detect a strike. As you can imagine, they're quite huge sometimes due to their size. Therefore, reports of physical disturbance to whales concerning large vessels, such as ship strikes, are likely underrepresented. Humpback whales and fin whales, which are the largest whales that frequent our waters and also don't use echolocation, are the most at risk. Killer whales are also at risk as a result of just poor boating practices. Studies have shown that travel below 10 knots can greatly decrease the chances of fatal vessel strikes. So it's important to slow down in areas where whales are known to frequent and to remain vigilant for signs of whale activity. Just to give a little story, this humpback whale known as BCX 1232, or otherwise known as Moon, was first observed on September 7th with what appeared to be severe spinal damage. And sorry, this is a few years ago in 2022. This individual was observed again on October 11th near Bishop Bay, and then again in the bottom picture here on December 2nd, just off of Maui in Hawaii. So she completed her migration. You can see the deterioration in body condition in the bottom photo compared to the top photo. In less than 2 months, this whale took a journey from British Columbia to Hawaii using only its pectoral flippers because it was unable to use its tail due to a spinal injury. Researchers up and down the coast searched their databases for photos of this whale. All previous photos had no indication of spinal injury, deeming that this was an injury that was most likely from a vessel strike. It's truly incredible that this whale made over a 4,000-kilometer journey in the condition that it was in, but Moon unfortunately hasn't been seen since its last encounter on December 2nd, 2022. So vessels also pose the threat of acoustic disturbance to whale species. Engine noise can mask echolocation in toothed whales, which is vital for communication, foraging, and social behavior, such as prey sharing and mating. Overall, it greatly increases stress levels and can even result in driving whales away from important areas such as feeding grounds. And by disrupting vital pod communication and forcing orcas to call louder and longer, acoustic disturbance can also increase their energy expenditure and reducing hunting efficiency. So here I have a clip from Orca Lab of what a vessel may sound like when passing a group of killer whales communicating. And as you'll see, their calls are increasingly difficult to make out. So as you can imagine, it's kind of like trying to have a normal level conversation with the sound of a lawnmower or a leaf blower going on right beside you. Whoops. There we go. So our solution was Whale Report. So Whale Report helps us monitor whale presence and hopefully reduce ship strikes. It's a freely available app to submit sightings of whales, dolphins, porpoises, and the rare sea turtle and contribute to marine conservation efforts. We did previously have a version of this app, but we've revamped it and added some new features such as a new user interface, marine mammal regulation layers, the ability to view sightings in your area with a 24-hour delay, and the application also works outside of BC now. So our hope is to expand to many more coastal areas across the globe as Whale Report continues to grow. Mariners will also be able to use Whale Report, and additionally, authorized mariners will be able to have access to the alerting system through the app to get real-time sightings that will alert them to the presence of whales to mitigate whale vessel interactions. Overall, our hope is that Whale Report empowers community scientists to submit sightings in real time of whales, allows mariners to receive targeted alerts of whale presence, and also empowers people to learn more about regulations, how to reduce their impact, and how to identify whales through our in-app resources. So just to go over the user types and features, because now it is one app, which can be a little bit confusing for people. In the past, Whale Report and the Whale Report Alert System were actually two separate things. Generally, Whale Report is for the public and anyone on the water to use, but the Whale Report Alert System, or the RAS, is for those directly involved in maritime operations, including commercial and government vessels, research and conservation organizations, as well as representatives of Indigenous governments or communities, such as coastal guardians. The Whale Report Alert System is not available for personal use or for ecotourism organizations, just to avoid encouraging additional traffic around whales. They are, again, two functions within one app. Whale Report is public-facing and the RAS is not. Here I have a table which hopefully lays things out a little more clearly. Some of the main differences are just shown right here. So generally, whale report, again, is for the public and anyone on the water to use and report their whale sightings, but the RAS is for authorized users only. Whale report can be used to report whale sightings, but also there are other functions such as being able to view your regional sightings with a 24-hour delay and to learn more about whales and whale conservation issues through in-app resources. The Whale Report Alert System is that tool that's sending real-time alerts of whale presence to mariners in order to reduce vessel strike or disturbance. So I'm going to walk through a bit of the app with you guys. First, we're getting started. So the first step is to download the app and log in either on your device or your web browser. The first time you want to submit a sighting, you'll create an account. You'll need to provide information such as your name, your organization, and your email. Once this information is saved, you will be able to log in a lot faster in the future, and your sightings will actually be tied to that email historically. Ensure your company name is entered correctly when setting up your account. If you belong to a company, it's recommended to sign up with that email if the app is related to work. So if you all wanted to be reporting your sightings as the Sea Kayak Association of British Columbia, you could enter that as your company. And I'll just walk you through here. I've got a little video going. So it'll go through prompts of organization name. So you'll fill in your organization name here. It'll also ask you for your experience on the ocean, the seasons that you spend on the water. It'll ask you to turn on your location services. So that's important for when you're reporting your whale sightings. And it'll also ask for notification services. That's more essential for mariners who are receiving real-time alerts. So this is the Whale Report app on the desktop interface. So going through the map, you will see that you can click on these dots, and each of these dots will represent a whale sighting and will provide you with a little more detail. So we're going around the map interface now, but if you click on these sightings, you'll see that you can get information on the actual sightings that are here. You can also, oops, have I gone too far? There we go. Technical difficulties. You can also click on marine mammal regulations. So each of these polygons represents a regulation or a guideline. And so you can click on these and you can get a little more information on, okay, what kind of guide or what kind of restriction is this? Is it a speed restriction? Is it a marine protected area? It'll just give you more information about that. You can also report a sighting. So we're going to go back a little bit here, actually. This video is not cooperating with me very well today. So we're going to go back and you can report your sighting up in the left-hand corner here under report a sighting. And so when we're going through this, what we want to make sure is that when we are reporting our sighting, we are putting this location pin in the water. So that's going to be the location of the whale. Otherwise, sometimes it'll go to the location of the observer, and I'm going to have to track you down, and I'm going to have to ask you, hey, that whale you saw last week, where was it? Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't on land, and then we'll have to figure out together where it was in the water. So really important to make sure that you're putting the pin of the whale in the water. That's also really helpful for the alert that's going to go out so that mariners really know exactly where the whale was. You're going to be asked, what direction were the whales traveling in? Is this a real-time or historical sighting? What species did you see? If it was a killer whale, what ecotype did you see? How confident are you that that's a species that you actually saw? How many animals did you see? Where did you see them from? Was it land? Was it on the ferry? Was it in your kayak? Once all of that information is figured out and submitted, you can enter your report. It'll also ask you for some additional comments if you have any, location description. Those are not required, they're optional, but they are also really helpful information to get sometimes. When you hit submit, if an alert was triggered from your sighting, you will see a ring around your sighting, and this means that a mariner was actually alerted due to whale presence because of you. So what mariners will get a report within 10 if they are within 10 nautical miles of your report. So if you see that little ring, that means that, yeah, that mariner got that report and now that they know that a whale was there. We have a few other features of the new app. So here you're seeing again the map interface on the phone version of the application. It's the same idea. There's still the marine mammal polygon or marine mammal regulation polygons, these sightings with a 24-hour delay. Reporting a sighting is just found at the bottom of the screen here. You can also click on this sightings list, and this will take you to a list view of all of the sightings. You're able to filter sightings by date at the top there, and also the type of sightings if you want to filter for specific types of sightings. You'll also be able to go to an alerts page. So this page will be a little description of the Whale Report alert system, which is how your sightings are getting to mariners. This page is also where someone would go if they want to apply for access to the Whale Report alert system themselves. We also have a resources page. So we have information on threats to whales. So you can learn all about threats that whales face, like contaminants and vessel disturbance. We also have a downloadable resource section, so access to PDFs like ID guides and entanglement guides. A frequently asked questions section, so you can read all of the different questions that are often asked about Whale Report and the Whale Report alert system. You can also check out our species guide to view species-specific information with real images and information. You can learn how to report dead and distressed animals and different regional contacts for reporting these types of incidents. And there's also, there's also a how-to section on how to use Whale Report. You can also submit photos with your sightings. This is not necessary or expected of you by any means, but it does help us with identification at times. If you get a good photo of a tail fluke or of a dorsal fin, those can be really, really useful for IDing individuals. We can figure out what matriline was traveling together, whether a whale was a transient or a resident, what humpback whale it might have been. So these are really, really important. We have ID catalogs that we can go through. So if you can get a good photo, it's super appreciated, but it's also not necessary for reporting. It can also be important for quality assurance and also for sharing our work on social media. So as you can see, all of these photos that have been submitted are all from observers that submitted a photo with their report. So just to kind of wrap that up a little bit, what happens when you're reporting your sighting? First, you're reporting your sighting in the app or on the web browser. Next, your report is sent to commercial mariners who are authorized to receive those real-time alerts. Mariners are also receiving alerts through infrared cameras, hydrophones, and partner data providers, but most of our sightings are coming from people who are using the Whale Report app. And then finally, your report is saved in the Ocean Wise database and may be used by researchers to better understand the distribution and abundance of species. So we're using them for increasing situational awareness, but also for conservation and research. So they may be used to support environmental assessments, academic research, and other ENGO conservation projects, and informing policy as well. So sightings information is used to support recovery strategies for endangered species, assessing where designated critical habitats are, and other government processes. To date, we have over 200,000 sighting reports saved, and here on this map, you're seeing only really the more common species that we would have reported to us. They get pretty convoluted in the more popular areas, but I swear there's lots there. So just to share the impact of Whale Report, where we've been and where we are now, there have been over 80,000 alerts sent to mariners as of spring 2025, whereas during the year of launch, there was approximately 3,000 alerts. There was originally just over 900 Whale Report users in 2019 reporting their sightings, and as of 2025, we have approximately 5,000 Whale Report users. And that's not including those who report sightings through phone calls, logbooks, and emails. So overall, our sightings database encompasses over 7,000 sighters. When we started the alerting system, we onboarded about 40 marine organizations to receive alerts. And as of 2025, we have about 125 organizations, with some organizations holding multiple accounts with us. So approximately we have 800 RAS accounts across all of those organizations as of spring 2025. So now to move on to some whale spotting tips and tricks. We know how to report our whales. How do we go around and see them? I'm sure we've all seen whales before, but it never hurts. So have a good set of binoculars. We recommend a magnification of 8 by 42 or 10 by 42. While scanning, focus on sections instead of continuously scanning back and forth across the horizon. What I like to do is scan one section for a couple minutes and then move to the next, and to take breaks between scanning with bare eyes and with binoculars. I like to think of it as kind of zooming out and zooming in on a specific section, and using the light in your favor and focusing your efforts where the whale's flow will be kind of backlit. So you'll be able to spot whales a little more reliably and also from greater distances. The blow is often the first thing you'll notice, but splashes or also surface disturbance can be a good indication that there are whales around. So we can also rely on visual cues. So things like blows, splashes, dorsal fins, tail flukes, breaches, bubble net, feeding. All of these can, of course, indicate that there are whales nearby. Some are a little more obvious than others, such as breaches. Let's say humpback whales are often the ones that are breaching, especially showing their tail flukes. But also blows and dorsal fins can help us figure out what kind of species we're seeing. They can help us identify the species that we're viewing. So all of these are really important to keep in mind. Perhaps a little less obvious, breath. So acoustic and olfactory cues. You can hear blows more often from a distance. And if close enough, sometimes you can smell them. It doesn't usually smell very good. Running water that you can hear, that can be indicative of many dolphins moving through the water and traveling very quickly. Slapping. So this is a common behavior seen in humpback whales and killer whales. Still, we're not entirely sure why they do this, but there are some theories such as for communication. Big's killer whales are known to do this following a successful predation event. So maybe they're doing something like celebrating. But again, these are all things to look out for: that sound of slapping, that sound of running water, and the sound of that big blow coming up out of the water. We can also rely on other species. So this is what I actually rely on pretty often. Bait balls. So when fish form a tight ball, which allows for large predators like whales to eat large swaths of the school in just one big pass. It is actually for the fish. It's their last ditch kind of defensive measure adopted to school together when they're threatened by predators, but it kind of works out in the whale's favor at the end. Pinnipeds hauling out. So this indicates that there might be marine mammal hunting Big's killer whales nearby, or transient killer whales that are feeding on marine mammals. So you can see in this photo, all of these sea lions have hauled out onto this rock, and there's a transient killer whale just waiting for one of them to fall in. Bird activity can also offer really valuable clues about what's happening below the surface, and it can indicate the presence of whales. So a small, tightly grouped cluster of gulls often signals that a big killer whale predation event is going on. In contrast, larger, more dispersed gatherings of gulls, especially when joined by other seabirds, typically suggest a really productive feeding area where baleen whales like humpbacks may be nearby. We can also work on interpreting whale behavior. So understanding their behavior can offer really valuable insight into what to expect as you're observing them. Humpback whales, for instance, tend to be more unpredictable in their movements than killer whales. This is really important to keep in mind if we are on a vessel or even in a kayak. A high number of humpback blows in an area often indicates a productive foraging spot, but their direction and surfacing can be kind of erratic, so extra vigilance is really needed. Killer whales, on the other hand, typically maintain a consistent course and speed when they're traveling in groups. Their behavior can also become more scattered during feeding times. So signs of foraging include many whales spread out. This would often be resident killer whales that are chasing fish, or a small group close to each other moving in different directions, sometimes accompanied by, again, like I said before, that tight group of gulls that are diving for scraps. This can suggest that a big killer whale predation event is occurring. So now I'm going to go through some of the more common species you might see in the area. We do have quite a few. I know you guys are mostly based in Vancouver, I think, so I chose a couple that you might see just generally around the Vancouver area. I'm sure we all travel to Kayak, but just for the sake of time. So we have the odontocetes or the toothed whales. So what takes these guys apart is that they've got teeth, they've got no ventral plates, and they have just the one blowhole. One you might see are the harbor porpoise. So these are a small porpoise found in really shallow coastal waters. They're elusive and not very surface active. It's such a treat when you do see one. I think they're really, really cute. Your best bet is to just watch the water for a while and you might notice one. They're often found alone or found in groups of maybe 2 to 3, and they can be recognized by their small, little triangular dorsal fin and gray-black coloring. I do have a little video here for some identification fun. There they are. So you see it's almost like a little wheel. It's a very tight little surface. And they don't come up for very long. With the way they're moving about right now, it almost looks to me like they could be feeding. All right. This one doesn't need much instruction, but the killer whale. So these are found in coastal and oceanic areas. These are the largest species of dolphin, so they exhibit very highly social and acrobatic behaviors as well. They can be recognized by their large black dorsal fins and white eye patches. So we have 3 ecotypes of killer whales in British Columbia. We have the transient killer whales, which are the marine mammal eaters. They travel in smaller matriarchal groups, and their dorsal fin is tall and pointed. They have a species at risk status of threatened. We also have the residents. So these are the fish eaters eating primarily Chinook salmon. These guys travel in larger pods and sometimes form huge, huge groups, almost super pods. Their dorsal is a bit more rounded and angled towards the back than the transients, and their species at risk status is endangered for the southern population and threatened for the northern population. So the endangered population has hovered around 75 individuals, and the northern population is doing a bit better at over 300 individuals at this point. The offshore killer whales we're not super likely to see because they are found, as their name indicates, offshore. But their diet consists of fish and sharks, and their dorsal is continuously rounded around the tip. So that's kind of how you indicate that it's an offshore killer whale. And their species at risk status is also threatened, like the transients. So just to give a little more of a close-up of residents, these guys are very acoustically active. They use echolocation often, and they're traveling in those family groups. And as you can see in this photo, I don't know if you'll notice, but the dorsal fin, especially of the male there, is a little bit more turned toward the back, and it's a little more rounded. Versus the big killer whales, so otherwise known as transients. Sometimes they'll be found traveling completely alone, especially male adults without a mother. They're often very silent when hunting marine mammals. So that's sort of the difference, is that residents are hunting salmon, they're hunting fish, so they can be as loud as they want. Big killer whales are kind of the more stealthy ecotype, so they're using echolocation a lot less frequently. They vocalize and exhibit more sort of loud behaviors like breaching and tail slapping after a kill. It's quite something to see. They'll just be celebrating almost and breaching and tail slapping and doing all of these things. Like they're excited that they just had a predation event. And you'll see here that the dorsal fin is much straighter, especially on the males there. I do have a video here. So these are a couple of residents, and you'll see that very rounded and arched to the back dorsal fin. And then we have the baleen whales or the mysticetes. So the mysticetes to the odontocetes. These guys have baleen instead of teeth, as their name suggests. These baleen plates act as filters. So when they're taking large mouthfuls of water during feeding events, they expel that water through the plates and prey, such as krill or small fish, get caught in the baleen. These guys have two blowholes. So this is just an evolutionary trait of nostrils to make breathing at the surface easier. And they have ventral pleats. So the function of ventral pleats is to allow the whale's throat and ventral pouch to expand quite a bit, which creates larger volume for engulfing really large quantities of water and prey during their feeding. I know we've all seen kind of the huge expansion of the sort of the throat or the mouth of baleen whales when they're coming up to take a big lunge feed. So that's what the ventral plates are doing. They're allowing for that. One you might see, there's actually been quite a few sightings around the Vancouver area lately, is the gray whale. So these guys have a mottled skin appearance with lots of scarring and pigmentation, and much of their body is covered with barnacles and whale lice, which are not harmful to the whale unless perhaps it's already in bad health. They have no dorsal fin, only a small hump that's followed by a series of knuckles along their back. So you can see that in the photo here with the arrow pointing down. Their blow is low and bushy and about 3 to 4 meters high, and it's often heart-shaped or V-shaped, which is really, that's actually quite often here on the Pacific Rim, how I distinguish whether it's a humpback or a gray whale that I'm seeing is if I see the heart-shaped blow. Their surface behavior is very unobtrusive. They're sometimes referred to as breathing rocks, and they don't breach a whole lot. But you will find them quite close to shore sometimes, feeding in the shallow waters. Also, the humpback whale. So the humpbacks, they've got this kind of gray to black skin color. They also have these tubercles on their rostrum. These house hair follicles with nerves that act as a sensory organ, which detect vibrations, temperature changes, and water movement, which help the whales sense its environment and detect prey. The exact function of these hair follicles and of the tubercles is still being researched, but they provide an enhanced sensory perception that just helps the whales navigate and hunt. They have a small, kind of irregularly shaped dorsal fin that rests on a pronounced hump on the back, hence their name. The dorsal fin can be used quite often to identify the individual that we're looking at in photos and such. They have a very tall, kind of bushy blow when they come up and surface to breathe, and they can sometimes breach and will show tail flukes before a dive. The tail flukes are also very, very important for identification purposes. We like to say that they're almost like a fingerprint. All of them are entirely unique, and we have catalogs upon catalogs of humpback whale flukes that we use to identify the individuals. And they'll show them before they dive, and usually then you won't see them for another 5 to 10 to 20 minutes. So just to cover a few more things about actually being safe around whales. So it's illegal to disturb marine mammals, and it's an offense punishable by a fine of up to $100,000 or imprisonment up to 1 year. These regulations include not interacting or disturbing any species of marine mammal, not separating marine mammals from its group or getting between a mother and a calf pair, not trapping marine mammals between your vessel and the shoreline or any other vessels, and not tagging or marking these animals. There are also something called the Be Whale Wise guidelines and other voluntary measures that you can take. So these are ones that we strongly, strongly recommend to just about anyone who heads out on the water in any way. Being vigilant for signs of marine mammal presence, as whales may change direction or surface really unpredictably, reducing speed to less than 7 knots within 100 or 1,000 meters of a whale. When safe to do so, turning off any fish finders or echo sounders, always approaching and departing from the side, moving parallel to the animal's direction of travel so you're not disturbing it or cutting it off, not approaching from the front or from behind, keeping within a 100-meter distance from all marine mammals, or 200 if they're resting with a calf, and keeping a minimum of 200 meters from killer whales or 400 meters between Campbell River to north of Ucluelet from June 2nd to May 31st. That is the regulation. I think that's the same video from before. And just an FYI, you are legally required to report a few things. So if you're out on the water a lot and you see any of these things, please do report them so that we can get the right people on it, and hopefully help that animal out. Any injured, distressed, or dead marine mammals, depredation, so that's toothed whales stealing fish from fishermen, ship strikes or evidence of ship strikes. If you see a whale that looks like any of these whales in these photos, that likely indicates that they've been struck and they may be suffering and they may need a team on it. Or entanglement. So we do have a marine mammal incident reporting hotline that you can report any of these to. With entanglement, it is also really important that we get on that right away. So the DFO team will head out there and do their best to use their training to untangle that whale. The reporting hotline is up here, but it's also really easy to find online. You can just look up DFO Marine Mammal Incident Reporting Hotline. If you want to learn more about whale-safe boating, there is a new course from the Marine Education and Research Society. This course is open to the public and it's completely free. It aims to educate the public on best practices for boating around whales and marine mammal regulations. So it'll go into a little more depth on what I just covered. The course is 90 minutes long and you receive a certificate of completion as well as resources when you're finished. So we're really highly recommending it. If anyone wants to learn more, you can head to www.whalesafeboating.org. And that's sort of what I have for you guys. I've got the QR code up here. If you can't do that right now, you can also head to your app store or get the app on Google Play and download it there. We are happy to receive any future questions to our inbox. So that is ras@ocean.org. I will also put my own personal email into the chat here, just in case anyone has any future questions. I hope that I can answer any of them, but if I can't, I will direct you to someone who can.